Hello everyone, my name is Nathan and today it's time for the second episode of Let's 3D Design and Print Something. In the previous episode we have built the basics for this battleship game. I think it turned out pretty well, however there are quite a few things we still have to design. In this episode I want to focus a little bit on the functional parts. That essentially means we're going to create the hinge system and possibly also a locking mechanism so you can, store it away without it opening up on its own. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get right into it. First of all, I want to kind of push this out of the way. I don't really need that right now. We are going to focus on this part right here, and I think I want to start, let me think, probably with a normal cube. Yeah, let's use that and see what we can make of it. I want to make this approximately 1 centimeter and then it can be approximately 30 in length. Okay, let's bring this all the way up to the position I want it to be in, which is right there. And I think I want to go approximately 2 millimeters into this direction. So we have a little bit of an edge here. Now, one thing we should always keep in mind is how we have to print it, and of course this one right here would require supports. However, I would like to print everything, or most of it at least, without supports. That means we have to keep gravity in mind, and for instance we can fix this by placing one of those guys inside of it. So we're also going to make this 3 by 1 centimeters. There we go, and we're going to bring this over right there. Now, most printers can actually print at a 45-degree angle, so we don't necessarily need it to be this big. Let's go ahead and do something like, let's go ahead and do 15 centimeters. I'm gonna bring this back up. There we go. So that is gonna be my system, and this should be printable. So why don't we go ahead and actually already combine these two guys? We need to do some further editing, but this way we can see a little bit better what I'm going for. The next thing I want to do is actually poke a hole into that. So we're gonna create a cylinder and rotate this around. And I'm gonna make this approximately 5 millimeters in diameter. I'm gonna make it a little bit longer and we're gonna bring it up to a position I'm comfortable with. This looks actually not too shabby. Maybe it's a little bit close to the right side. I need to go a little bit lower with my snapping here. Yeah, looking good. I think this is more or less centered. We're gonna go with that. So this is going to be a hole, and therefore we want to combine these two objects and we should have our little hole for the hinge mechanism. Now, looking at this, we might want to do some cosmetic changes. Could we actually go with, let's just go with a normal cube. We're gonna rotate this 45 degrees, bring it up a little bit and kind of cut off a little bit of this edge. I would say we can cut off about this much and we should still be good with the stability of our item here. Now, this is actually the first hinge I'm ever designing here. I'm just looking at a box that I have here and I'm trying to replicate it as good as possible. And I see they have made some kind of a locking mechanism on one side and not the other, so it's not symmetrical. So what I'm gonna do is copy it over at this stage, and using shift I can just drag it in one dimension. And we want to go ahead and do the same 2 millimeters right here, the distance. And then we're gonna go back to this guy and we're gonna switch up a few things right here. They actually have several shapes. One is just for the stick for the entire row, and then they have like a stopper shape on this side. And this prevents the stick from, wobbling and rotating around too much. So what I'm gonna do is take another cube, but we're gonna make this substantially smaller. Let's go ahead and do approximately 7 or so in diameter. And I want to bring this right up here. Now I think what I'm actually gonna do is make this the same size. We're gonna go with 7 by 7. That's the size of our hole. No, the hole is actually 5 by 5, isn't it? So that's probably what we should do. We should just poke out this section here. And how much of it should we do? Let's do approximately 3. No, we can actually do like half a centimeter. No problem. We could do even more. Let's do more. We're gonna do exactly 1 centimeter. There we go. We're gonna make this a hollow body. And then we need to combine it with this guy. Let's try to do that. Oh yeah, okay. And now we have this stopper block. So we do have the stick, but there is one of those cubes attached to the stick, so the stick itself cannot rotate or wobble around too much. To finish this off, we could even make a cap that we can attach and put right into there. But if I get the dimensions of the stick correct, then we should have no wobbliness at all. So is this everything we needed to do for the bottom part? And this should also be printable, no problem whatsoever. Great, let's take care of the upper part. Now I thought about this and I figured it's probably best to actually build this while it is closed. This way we are making sure we are building it in a way so that we can still rotate it around without problems. And there we go. This seems to be the resting position, the perfect resting position. And now we can start designing the other hinges. Let me think about that for a bit. I probably want a module that is very close to this guy, but not so close that we cannot actually put it in. So we need approximately 0.4 millimeters of space in between our two modules. The upper part right here is of course going to be printed the opposite way, so we need something that can be printed from the top down, looking at it this way. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a cube right here with the right dimensions. We want this to be, let's go and do 10 millimeters again, and I want to bring this to the right location. Okay, there we go. Now these are exactly next to each other and I want to make sure I can space them. So we're gonna go really exact with our measurements. And we want to go ahead and do 0.4 millimeters. You can see it at the bottom right there. So this should be enough space so that we can have a tight fit, but it's still capable of moving next to each other. Now, one thing I want to make sure of is that this is actually not a cube. We want to take a cylinder in order to do that, thinking about it. Looking at it from this angle, we can actually see it is touching the board. That is not good. We have to make this smaller than 10. Let's go ahead and do approximately 9. Great, so now we are dead center and we also have a little bit of spacing here. That means we should be able to rotate this around without too many problems. Now, is the spacing enough is the question. You know, this might be such a tight fit that we have problems moving the part, but I'm just going to assume we are going to be okay for now. Nice, okay, this is going to be the lower part. Let's go back to a full body, and now we can take this cube again. We're also going to make it 9 in width, and we're going to bring it over and up a little bit. Exactly to the center of the cylinder, and we're going to make it the same length. There we go. Oh yeah, this should weld nicely together. I also want to make this a little bit smaller because as soon as the actual upper part starts, I want to start with another cube. Let's go a little bit higher, maybe 6 millimeters there. Alright, now I'm gonna take yet another cube and I'm gonna bring this on top of the one we just made. There we go, but this time we want to make sure that we are actually touching the surface of the board, just like that. Okay, and now if we think about this rotating, theoretically this should work, you know. And also if we bring this up all the way to the top, we should be able to print it without issues. Okay, let's try to combine these three objects and see what happens. Though there's a line that I don't want. Yeah, I made a mistake. I have to move these guys one more space over. Ah, beautiful. You can be really precise in this program, but I'm not yet convinced that it's going to be the most convenient program to design all of these things. But anyway, let me cut off some of the upper part as well, which is going to do another one of those. And make sure this border isn't as rough. For instance, something like that. That could already be good. Combine these two. There we go. Looking already better. Another thing we have to make sure of course, is that we still have the same thing going on here. We have to have a hole. However, I need to make sure it is exactly lined up with our first hole here. There we go. That looks about right. I'm pretty sure it's exact. And therefore, we can select this and that and combine them again in order to get our hole. Beautiful. Look at that. It's going to be perfect. Oh yeah, it's definitely going to work out. And you know, if you think about it opening, then it theoretically should also work. Unfortunately, there's no easy way for me to test it in this program since I cannot decide where the pivot point should be. So I was kind of thinking about maybe using another program for the next project, so we might be able to do a little bit more detailed work with more tools at our disposal. But yeah, for now I'm just gonna copy this over, Control D, and I'm gonna shift this over here. As of this point we move 0.4 millimeters over and we have the exact same distance on both of these. Both of these should be printable. All we need to do is maybe set up one more of those guys here at the back. Now, one more thing I want to make sure of is that it actually stops at a certain point. So that's going to be a little bit hard to imagine. Maybe we rotate this around very briefly. Oh no, I actually meant to first attach those guys probably. Yeah, let's make them bluish as well. And we're gonna select that and group everything together. Oh yeah, look at that. This might actually work out. We're gonna rotate it about, let's say, up to 120 degrees. This looks comfortable. And I want to bring it up to the location where it usually would be, and you can see that the rotation is not going to be an issue at all. However, I want to stop it at a certain point, so I was thinking about actually adding something here that is going to be stopping it against the floor, for instance, or even better, against the board itself. Yeah, let's do that. I'm gonna undo everything until we have control over stuff, and I'm gonna copy one more of those hinges over. Now, let's see. I probably want to leave a little bit of space free here, but then we can make this relatively big. It feels like actually that is too much. I'm gonna limit this a little bit. Let me see. There we go, that looks about right. However, the bottom we probably now want to design differently. We have to think about that. There's gonna be an extension here of some sorts, maybe one of those. I mean, if we added one right there, for instance, you can imagine by turning it around, it would eventually stop at the bottom part of the game. And where that spot is, we have to figure out now. So I'm gonna go ahead and combine all of these objects once again so that we can do some rotation and testing. Actually, before we do the rotating and testing, let's go ahead and also combine the lower part of the box. And we're gonna design the stick, since we have everything in perfect place at the moment. The stick needs to be a little bit smaller, so these parts can all move around the stick. However, at this point we want to make it a very tight fit, so that it really holds in place. So that means we're gonna start with a cylinder and rotate it the right way. We want to go ahead and use the dimensions we used for our hole, which are 5mm. Now, as of this place, we need to be a little bit more precise. I'm gonna set my snappings to 0.1mm. I want to have a distance of 0.4mm around the entire thing. So since we start at 5mm, we want to have a double of 0.4, which is 0.8. So we go down to 4.2 with that. Same thing right here, 4.2. And that should be the size of our stick, theoretically. Let's bring it up to the place where we need it. And I want to make sure that we line it up just right. And that could actually be a little bit of an issue. Okay, I think I got it lined up. It seems to be more or less perfect. It's going through everything. That means we can drag it all the way through here as well. Oh yeah. Now, right here, I want to make sure it's going in approximately 2mm or so. I don't want this to get in the way. So that's 1, 2, and this way it's not gonna stick out by 2mm. Same thing right here. Here we gotta be a little bit more careful, because after 1 centimeter or so, we want to switch into the other shape. Now, is this precise enough? Yeah, it looks as though we got it spot on. Good, let's switch the shape into a cube. The cube is gonna be what? What was that, 9mm, or did we make it 7? Oh no, it seems to be actually 5. Alright. Now the cube needs to be 1 centimeter. There we go, so we touch the surface of the stick. But we want to make it 2mm smaller so that it also doesn't stick out, and we, as I said, have the potential to put a cap on this. Good. Now for a tight fit, you want to leave approximately 0.25mm of free space around the edges. And this is going to allow you to stick the part in. However, it's not going to have any space to wobble around. It's going to be such a tight fit that you will barely be able to get it out again. So 0.25mm, we're gonna shrink this from the top down first of all to 4.5, so we can bring it up a little bit again. There we go. Also gonna shrink it right here and shrink it right there. Beautiful. So this should be an ultra tight fit for the square. I'm gonna swap this into a normal body again, and then I want to combine it with my stick. Let's do that. Oh yeah, beautiful. Okay, this is gonna remain its own group because we are gonna print this thing in 3 parts possibly. But now we should be able to rotate this around. Let's do about 120 or so. As I said, this seems to be convenient to play. And we wanna make sure that we fit it where it would actually go again. Oh man. Yeah, I think I got it more or less right. So now we can think about the stopper mechanism. If we manage to place something in here, then we should be good, right? So we need this to rotate around 122 degrees as well. Let me see if I can get this precise. Okay, I'm not so sure what I'm doing, but I think we can get it right. So this seems to be exactly at the box. Of course, I want to make this a little bit smoother, but this would be the basic idea, that it stops at exactly this angle. Let me think about this. Is this really a good angle? Maybe it's not steep enough, to be honest with you. Maybe we would prefer something like that, but let's not do 0.5. Let's do a round number. Like we did minus 20 degrees, so in total that would be 100 degrees then, instead of 90. There we go, 100 degrees just looks more reasonable in my opinion, so we're gonna do that. But that means we have to switch this guy up. Let me fix this quickly, and I'm gonna be right back. Okay, there we go. How about that? I think that would make it printable, and it would also stop right here. It would be a more or less elegant solution. More or less. How would it look when it's closed? That is the question. It would potentially look ugly. Let me test this out. We're gonna combine the upper part and we're gonna rotate it back. But for now we're gonna switch back 100 degrees and then put it on the top and see how that looks with the stopper block. There we go. What do you think? Is this too much or is this alright? And I just see it switch this guy up again. There is a mistake here. I will have to fix that too. But it wouldn't hurt too much to have this stopper block at the box. We could even have the stopper block here, to be honest with you. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Oh man, give me another second. I'm gonna fix it up and then I'm gonna be back. And back we are. This time I designed the stopper block to be at the bottom part. And you can see I kind of tried to do the exact angle I want this to be resting on it. And I also left a little bit of space free for the hinge to be able to still rotate. Now we will have to test if it really works. But for now I want to select this bad boy and actually hook it up with our bottom part. There we go, looking not too shabby, and I do want to test out if it works at certain angles. So let's go ahead and rotate this maybe by 40 degrees or so, and we're gonna bring it back into place. So there we go, this is now at 60 degrees and we can see that we still have enough space for the hinge mechanism to work out. Let's go ahead and do about 30 degrees. But there we go, this is more or less lined up and we can see at all times this is actually working out. I think we have a beautiful concept going on for ourselves here. So let's close the box by going another 30 degrees and we want to wrap up this video by making a very simple closing mechanism. This is how the box looks closed. It's not the most beautiful thing, but it's gonna be very practical. You know, the thing is gonna hold in place no problem. Now we need to add a closing mechanism. We're gonna do this very simply using a couple of cylinders and a handcrafted piece to close things off. Now, how can I ensure this is the perfect center? That's another thing I wonder about this program. Let me try something. We're gonna click this and the box, and then we're gonna click this align tool, and I want to... oh man, do I want to do that? There we go. Okay, so we can align it right there. Now it should be in the perfect center. Beautiful. So I'm thankful this is actually possible. You know, one problem we're gonna have is that this is gonna require a couple of supports. And I really don't want the supports. We could build it all the way on the top here. This way we could build it without using supports, because the printer does have a layer to start off with, but it might run into a couple of issues building that anyways. Let me think. What we could do is make a pin out of those, so we could actually stick them in afterwards. These guys could be printed out separately, so let's grab one of those and we're gonna create yet another cylinder by... oh man, what did I do? I wanted to copy this bad boy so that we can bring it over, and then we're just gonna make it a little bit smaller, maybe 3 millimeters. We're gonna make it about 4 millimeters long. So this could be the pin that we actually stick into the box. So all we have to do is make a hole in the box and afterwards we can stick them in. What I want to do additionally is create an extra one of those, but this one we're gonna make substantially smaller, maybe just 1 millimeter. But we're gonna make it a little bit wider. This would allow us to, for instance, construct a piece that wraps around both of the pins. And it's not too obtrusive. We could even take a piece of rope and then bind them together. Let's go ahead, take all of these parts. We're gonna make one group out of those. I want to copy this so that we can actually put a hole into the thingy here. Oh, and that reminds me, of course, the hole needs to be a little bit bigger. It needs to be 0.25 millimeters bigger. This would make it 3.25. We need to go 3.5 and then move it around a bit. There we go. Okay, now this should be a little bit bigger. So we're gonna make a hole out of this and we're gonna put that right in there. Beautiful. Okay, let's try to combine these two objects and see what happens. Whoa, doesn't look promising so far, but it never does. There we go. It actually worked out. So what I should do is actually make a copy of this before we waste it, because we need to apply it to the bottom as well, of course. So let me quickly finish poking the holes. And there we go, we got our box designed. All we need is maybe a little piece. I'm not even sure if I want to make this out of plastic. Maybe I'm just gonna use a nice piece of rope or something like that. But theoretically, this should all work out. We have the upper part, the lower part, we have this stick piece, and then these two little pins to print out. In the next episode, we still have, of course, the pieces, the pins, and everything else, the decorative stuff to design. Maybe we want to make the box a little bit nicer, and then in the last episode, I'm gonna print it out. I'm gonna tell you everything about the printer that I currently have. Do not worry about that, but all in its due time. For right now, we are just designing. So let me know what you think about this concept so far. Do you think it is going to work out, or do you think there are going to be problems? If you enjoyed this episode, as usual, don't forget to leave a like. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a great time, and hopefully I'm going to catch you in the next video. Bye bye.